Hey friends, I've had an amazing experience looking back over the social justice ministries of our conference for a little over 90 years. We've been in the public arena tackling difficult issues for decades. In the early days, we were thinking about labor and worker safety. We were worried about gambling and its effects. We were sending people into volatile mission fields, Angola, India, and countries in Africa. We were tending to one another during the Depression years. There was much debate about temperance, the liquor problem, as it was sometimes called. After the Second World War, we were beginning to think about healing. Health services became an important conversation, calling attention to the terrible treatment of Japanese Canadians. We were beginning to wrestle with issues of race. As baby boomers came into adulthood, they challenged their church to grapple with new topics. In the 70s, we also responded to the crisis of the Vietnamese people who were fleeing for their safety by the hundreds of thousands. This was also the time when the conversations about human sexuality and sexual orientation really began to open up. We were then talking about abortion and addictions. We were talking about boycotts, nonviolent ways to peace, nuclear disarmament. We were urging the government to consider a guaranteed annual income.
The Economic Animation Project was a unique and very formative program for the United Church of Canada. The work in Sydney Presbytery involved working with the Whitney Pier Nonprofit Housing Society. So the Whitney Pier Nonprofit Housing Society created about 12 to 13 houses that they built for people who would never be able to own their own homes. The other project that we did in Sydney was working with the Every Woman's Resource Centre. Work in PEI was working with the farmers who had been forced into foreclosure. The Economic Animation Project moved us from being a policy and petition type of approach to social ministries into a project mode. It was a wonderful example of the church being different to respond to a much more holistic sense of the community and the church being part of that community.
The Passamaquoddy Nation down here had never been recognized here in Canada as an indigenous group.
Yeah.
And we helped them work with the government to get that recognition.
We worked with the Aboriginal Rights Coalition Atlantic, which we helped form back in 1992 to respond to the Marshall decision and the violence against native fishers who were trying to seek a commercial income from the fisheries.
A lot of the work that we did in the Maritimes through the church was fundamental to the ways that the rest of Canada is now working towards reconciliation.
I was so proud when I walked in here this morning to these powwow grounds and saw the sign United Church in Solidarity with the people here and the flag, and it just made my heart soar that my church would take that kind of a stand. So I said that from the stage, and I think it's important.
We've been privileged to share this work through the years with our much appreciated partners. Partners like the Tattamagush Center, like Kairos, our many ecumenical partners, and Breaking the Silence Network.
Gwe, Deluisi, Hannah Godwin Multi. I am from Tattamagush, Mi'kmaq territory in Nova Scotia, Canada. So in 2016, I traveled and lived in Rabinal, Guatemala for 12 weeks with Breaking the Silence. That time that I spent with my relatives in Rabinal really was the thing that set me on this path, and that has brought me here to the United Nations with my group. So it really had a significant impact on my life, and I continue to stand in solidarity with my relations there. In Breaking the Silence, we believe that we both have a lot to share with each other and a lot to teach each other. So it's not a one-sided relationship, it's truly a relationship of solidarity and learning.
In 2004, a number of United Church people were on a human rights delegation to Guatemala and discovered that the people in the highlands of Guatemala were very upset about the establishment of the Marlin mine by Goldcorp. And a year later, in fact, one of the municipalities voted to ask the mine not to continue and to leave. And in 2009, we discovered that the United Church Pension Board was investing in Goldcorp, so we asked the Pension Board through the General Council to divest. And that has not happened even to the present moment.
We have not only a responsibility, but a privilege to speak up for them as partners in the faith, and I do not want us to let them down.
Maritimers have always served in a wide variety of ministries and missions around the world. But it was during the 70s and 80s that the conversations began to shift.
You wanted to go to Guatemala, but they told you were too old now and you weren't allowed to go.
Yes, I finally reached that stage where they told me to stay home.
Yeah, because we've had a long partnership as a conference with Guatemala, like you were talking about the coffee, but it's been a long-standing partnership
It
with.
really has. Guatemala and Haiti, the two of them.
Yeah, you've always been a big inspiration for me because I know you've done this work for a long time.
Well, I loved it. I was really interested in it, and it was no chore. It was always, something I enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
Because I believe in it.
Yeah.
We haven't even mentioned yet the good work on just peace for Palestine, Israel. We haven't had a chance to celebrate and recognize the many refugee families who have been newly settled in communities around the Maritimes. And we haven't mentioned the new work that's emerging in mental health awareness and advocacy for the conference. But it's your turn now to think about the stories that have touched your heart. How has the work of social justice inspired and challenged you to reach beyond your comfort zone, beyond your neighbors?